Fantastic. Hello and welcome, all of you who are out there, wherever you may be, and they could be almost anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Experiencing this
Yes.
concert through a live streaming that not that many years ago would have been impossible to imagine.
Hmm.
And yet we can bring this to every corner of the world. Thank you for being with us. And we're here in the control booth of the absolutely gorgeous Meyerson Symphony Center. If you've never been here, you've just got to get on a plane and come for the next Dallas Winds concert. And I'm being joined here by Mr. Lance Sample, yes, who
Yes.
we've just met, so we don't know a lot about each other, yes.
Yes.
But what you do know is an awful lot about the big work on the second half, which is finding Rothko. We're going to talk a little bit about both the pieces
Hmm.
on the second half, but you're in the center of this huge and marvelous piece. Yeah.
Yes.
First of all, tell us what your relationship to this. Well, we haven't heard it yet, but you're going to. Tell us about it. How did you get involved with making this arrangement, and what was it like to do so? To be, I mean, what does an arranger do to get himself in the middle of all this?
Well, to start off, I was in the middle of my DMA, working on my Doctor of Musical Arts degree at University of Texas at Austin, and I'm a student of Professor Junkin. So, in the middle of the process of working on the DMA, one of the things you can do as part of a final project, you can either write a treatise or you can in at UT you can actually write a transcription based on an orchestral work. So it was about 2017. I was in the middle of the second year, and at the same time, UT had commissioned Adam Schoenberg to write a symphony for the CBDNA National Convention in Kansas City, and that was his second symphony, Migration. And he came to UT, came to Austin, rehearsed with the group, and at the same time, I got to know Adam. So it transpired into me getting to know him getting to know me, and I knew that eventually I had to find a project to work on. So I just, out of the clear blue, I love his music. I absolutely love his music. So I emailed him and I said, hey, I would like to do, one of your pieces. Is there a piece that hasn't been transcribed yet for band? And he mentioned Finding Rothko, and I had never heard of it. And I gave it a listen and looked at the score and fell in love with it.
I bet you did,
So
because
a great
it's
piece.
fabulous, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Fantastic piece. So the piece actually, it was written in 2006, and it's set in four movements. And it's based on four distinct paintings that Adam traveled and saw. And it was they're based on the paintings of Mark Rothko, visual artist who makes these big canvas paintings, his classic paintings that he drew, and how everything is in block forms, and that the colors sort of merge together, and you can't really tell. Like even if you look up close, you can't really tell where the colors kind of change. So it's all blended. And when he went to go see these paintings, he ended up having thoughts and emotions that came through after viewing these paintings. And so what he would do is that he would bring a journal and he would write down all those thoughts. And he decided to set his thoughts into music by improvising on the piano, which is something that he does as part of his technique, his compositional technique. And he would write or play at the piano, try to get some thematic material, and then he put it on paper. So for me, I decided that I thought that was really cool and really neat to try to take the piece that he had written based on what he did in his compositional technique and try to migrate it onto band and transcribe it for band. So the whole process itself was just quite interesting and fun.
So he's discovering these paintings, you're discovering this piece.
Yep.
A lot of discovery. And with Rothko, one of the things as an artist that mattered to him was that, and as you mentioned, these huge canvases, that the colored field technique that
Yes.
he really pioneered, but he wanted because of the size of the canvas and the way he felt about two-dimensional art, being sort of the truth teller, as he said in many of his quotes. He wanted the person to experience as much the experience of seeing the art as
Right.
simply seeing the art. I mean, he had this. It sounds kind of maybe corny now, but it's the 1940s, 1950s. These were very new ideas about encountering art, and we look at it and we go, "Wait a minute, it looks so modern." But it was a cutting edge for you. Think of that, right after the Second War, and so you. I mean, as a composer, what's so fabulous to me about this piece is that he experienced exactly, without having read probably the biographies of Rothko or knowing any of these ideas of Rothko, he actually experienced that idea of being enraptured through a kind of a canvas that serves as a stage set, as a drama, and he's part of the story. I think, which I think gives this idea of the narrative of the art that you create looking at this art.
Exactly.
I mean, it seems, you said it in a different way, and then Rothko was very clear about what he wanted people to experience was being wrapped up into this. And then wouldn't he be just thrilled to know that there's this piece of music out there?
Yes.
I mean, that would have never occurred to him back there,
That's
So,
right.
so you take the piece and you've got to transcribe it. What does that actually mean? I mean, is that this magic process? And you go, okay, turn into this. How do you do it?
Well, I basically for me and I'll back the train up a little bit. This for me, when I did this this project, it was my first ever arrangement and transcription.
That's pretty gutsy, isn't it?
So
I mean, really. I mean, we might as well start at the top if you're going to start, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, go ahead.
So what I did, I had former colleagues of mine within the studio who had graduated that I have seen them go through the process and watched how they did it. And then I also had I have a couple of friends who have done it before, who have arranged and transcribed work. So I would always bounce ideas off of them. But the whole process really was taking the score and listening to the piece over and over and over again, and making it so that I would map out exactly the pairings that I would make with the certain instruments, like clarinets would usually take the violin parts, and also from time to time the violas, and kind of set up a template throughout. But then there were other moments where I had to really be I had to be thoughtful and innovative and try to figure out ways to make certain pairings and certain musical elements or in compositional techniques, especially with the aleatoric writing of the third movement, and trying to make that work, because and they'll hear it in the third movement, which is red, where it's very aleatoric.
You've got to define that,
yes.
because while most people enjoying this concert may be familiar with that idea, the whole Latin root of that, the gamble.
Yes.
What does that mean, and what what kind of challenge does that then produce for you?
Well, in terms of the aleatory writing, or basically just extended techniques with each instrument and creating different sounds rather than all 12 pitches, it involved taking the wind instruments and trying to mimic those sounds. So, for instance, to give an example, with the violins, they create like a quarter tone oscillation on one string. So I had to figure out a solution to that, and what they'll hear in the piece is that I actually take the clarinets and have them do some quasi timbre trills on the
Explain that.
clarinets. So basically, taking the clarinet and using different fingerings to bend the pitch, or to have the pitch go either a quarter tone sharp or a quarter tone flat, and going back and forth.
And is that notated specifically in the score, or do you say to the player, go for it?
Well, it's a mixture of the two. So in the music, I write down and I say specifically quasi timbre trill. So it has like a wavy line that goes through the score as to when to actually do that. Throughout the music, and it carrying about 5 measures or so, sometimes even longer. So there are a couple of occasions where that happens. So.
And players like doing that, don't they? The
Yes,
freedom.
they do.
Yeah, you have the freedom in arranging. They have the freedom in playing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they do.
So, all right. Now, let me back up a little too. You've used the word transcribe and you've used the word arrange. Are they the same?
Transcribing is more so just taking what's in the score and trying to make it so that it is that it matches with a certain instrument within the ensemble that you're writing for. Arranging is taking the piece and taking it without its outside of its original form and kind of altering it in such a way, like maybe even putting it for or taking certain sections away, and I didn't want to do that, obviously. So transcribing, literally taking measure by measure, note by note, and assigning them to a different instrument that I felt would match greatly with the wind ensemble from the orchestra.
Okay.
So that was the difference between the two there.
So in this piece, the four movements, as you I think may have mentioned, but they're seamless in a sense, even though they're very distinct.
Yes.
That creates a certain kind of narrative in music, with a sense of freedom and yet structure. Sort of, as you said, the colors blending, the movements seamlessly interwoven with one another. This is, to me, when I think about this whole concert, this second half, and then we end with the Tchaikovsky, which is about as traditional as you can get, and yet like, always a great pleaser. Well, we have at the disposal of the wind ensemble the most marvelous repertoire of music written in the last, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. New, crisp, fresh, lyrical, lovely, exciting. I mean, and yet people don't always know this repertoire. They don't know all this is going on. Do you find yourself sometimes frustrated, wishing the whole world could come to these concerts and hear what's actually happening with largely American composers too, right? I mean, you're in the middle of this. Just some words about that. What's happening out there? It's so exciting.
Well, I think that a lot of in this world, the wind band world especially, there's constantly new literature being written, new pieces being written by mostly American composers. And I think that we're in a time where it is just continuously progressing. And I think that as we go further into more like 5-10 years down the road, I think that the wind band medium is going to grow even more. And it will go into a broader audience, I believe, and into people who into audiences that maybe go mainly to the symphony orchestra concerts, but they don't want to hear the band concerts. I think that will grow into them coming to into band concerts and having this ensemble, the Dallas Winds, perform.
A gem,
as
was said, a gem, a national treasure, really, right?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so people have this limited conception about a band because of what they've experienced. Thank heavens, experienced growing through school and all that. They have no idea the extent, of really where the action is, and we are at the center of the action. And you are at the center of the action in this piece.
Yes.
If only Tchaikovsky and Schoenberg and Rothko could all meet, right?
Right.
Which they will in the second half, in a way, right?
Yes.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming. I think in not too long from now, they're going to be reassembling, and we're going to be heading right back into first finding Rothko and then the Capriccio Italien, which is a wonderful way to cap off a great evening.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's been fantastic so far, and I can't wait to hear this because I've been
I bet
looking
you
forward
can.
to I've been really looking forward to watching or hearing this performance.
Are you
for quite
Are
some
you
time.
nervous?
I'm excited.
You're excited. That's
Very
a great
excited.
way to say it.
Very
Because there it
excited
is. This
about
is
it.
this is where the
Yes.
rubber meets the road, isn't
Yes.
it? It's one thing to be at the desk. It's another thing to have it on this stage, right?
Exactly.
But we're
Exactly.
awfully glad you put it on the stage for us and
Oh,
made
well,
this.
thank you.
And without the ingredient you brought, we wouldn't be hearing it tonight. So
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And greatly appreciate it.